Hey, I got a lot of stuff for you today.
You do?
Yeah, but I got.
You didn't send me a single text about what you want to talk about.
I know that,
today.
but that's because I had some. Here's the thing: most of the stuff I'm going to do with you today, you don't need any prepping for.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know me is that if we don't have to do it in the green room, then we're not going to do it in the green room.
Yeah.
And if there's something specific that is like historical or I need you to really think about, then yeah, I'll give you a little bit of prep. Yeah. But today the topics are very simple, and I'm starting with this. So Joey Votto hits a home run in his first AB.
I noticed that. Yeah, I saw that. What a bummer that was. He was playing in the game that wasn't on Sportsnet.
Yeah, I know.
Why did they do that? I mean, like, they have so their druthers. Too? It's like, oh, we got to have him face Zach Wheeler. And maybe that was part of it. We wanted him to face, like, a really good pitcher. But, like, come on.
Oh, sure. My actual thought about it was more so, you told me what day he was debuting. And I went to turn the TV on to look for it. And I was like, do I not have the thing? It's like, this is the only game I'm watching in spring other than the first. Yeah. And then I was going to watch Ricky Tiedemann, but then I forgot. Because I went, oh, right, it doesn't matter.
I watched 2 Ricky Tiedemann starts.
Yeah. He's had 2?
Yep.
I was only aware of the one. Good at my job. So I thought 2 things with the Votto home run. Well, actually, sorry, 3, because I'm going to get to the third. But the 2 immediate ones were, where's Vladdy play? Because Votto's now the team's first.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was my first thought is, did they try the Vlad at third base thing again? Or is he part of the DH rotation with Justin Turner? Like, how exactly is he going to get his ABs? It's a very...
Yeah, because he got an MVP at the peak of his powers.
That's what I'm saying. Number 2 is, though, it actually does also relate to Vlad. That's the second most famous preseason home run of all time for the Blue Jays. Number 1 is Vlad at the Big O. There's never going to be anything that touches that. That was like, oh my God, here comes the hope of the franchise in a preseason game. But no matter what happens with Joey Votto, we'll always have that moment, which actually has, by my estimation, been the moment of spring.
Well, there's no debate. I mean, what would the second one?
Well, that's what I was saying. Is that I thought that we would have something where we go, okay, well, no, but this is by far the moment.
Last year there was Ricky Tiedemann threw 100 and had a really good 3 outs against the Pirates. I want to say.
Yeah, but it's just kind of funny because when I asked you last week, hey, is it practical or is it for PR? If it's for PR, they've gotten all the juice. Like this has been a smashing success because people talked about it in a way that wasn't just, hey, aren't you nervous about what happens here? And all of a sudden, I'm getting texts from people down there going, oh, there's buzz. There's buzz about the offense. I was like, there's buzz about the offense? Joey Votto hit a home run. It's like, I think they're leading the Grapefruit League. And I'm just saying. All I'm saying is that it feeds into the narrative of the Blue Jays offense is back. Don't roll your eyes at me. Don't you dare give me that attitude on a Monday. I'm not
going to roll my eyes at Joey Votto hit a home run off Zach Wheeler at 95, even though it was a first pitch, like, get me over fastball.
Yeah,
I'm not going to roll my...
It was an absolute meatball.
Like, go back and look at the MLB game day. It's like,
I did. No, I didn't.
Right in the middle of the middle box.
No,
well
I didn't.
Done.
I didn't look at that. It was... So I first saw the home run, and I was like, oh, wow, nice. And then the second view I had of it, I was like, oh, he hung that right in the middle of the plate for Joey Votto, like right away.
So what? You're allowed to hit it.
Yeah. Who says you're not? Yeah.
Yeah. But
my guess is Zach Wheeler wouldn't be giving too many of those.
I mean, if there's a guy that you're gonna try and do that to, like Joey Votto he works a plate appearance. He takes all the walks in the world. He's not. I'd have to go through the stats and see how many first pitches he's swung on. It's not a lot. Like he does the Kevin Biggio thing where it's like, oh, I never swing at the first pitch, and then like once every 2 weeks he swings. Yeah, and I hit it over the wall.
Gotcha.
So, but when you do that, you don't miss.
Yeah.
And Joey Votto, he doesn't swing to miss, and he didn't in that instance.
Hey, anyway, it was kind of fun. Also, watching him trot around the bases, when he started to get out of the box, I was like, "Ooh, that's a 40-year-old man."
Yeah. That's his. He's not going to be stealing any bases.
No, he is not.
He's not going to be going first to third or second at home.
No,
but,
he's not.
I mean, he's competing against Daniel Vogelbach, who's not going to do that either.
They should race him. They should say at this finish line is the roster spot.
Yeah, except I'd be terrified of both of them like snapping all their ankles and all their ligaments. Like, I mean, Joey Votto
Kevin Hart
stepped
style
on
where he tried to
he stepped on a bat, and now it's like, oh, the 40-year-old man it hurt like the Dickens, and he's out for a bit. Yeah.
So I don't want to deep dive too much into the Joey Votto spring home run AB. It was fun. It was a cool moment, but extrapolating much from it, I think, is a little foolish, especially for a sport where we go, well, you need 500 ABs before we start to even like look at this in seriousness statistically.
Well, and even Joey Votto said, like, I need my 40 games of spring, like 40 days of spring. So he's like already, I think if you asked him maybe at the conclusion of spring, would you like to come north or continue to hone your craft like here until you're ready? He might even admit, like, no, I need a little more time.
Okay. Well, either way, who cares?
Yeah.
The main thing here is I've realized why you're rooting for this so hard.
What?
Well, as you said it, he's a 40-year-old man.
Oh,
okay?
I see. Yeah, for the olds?
Yeah, bear with me here. So I went through all the 4 major sports. I didn't go through the soccer leagues because there's too many soccer leagues. I assume that there's got to be some 40-year-old guys that are still chopping it up somewhere in some soccer leagues, but
MLS would be the place. Messi's zoning in on it.
Is he zoning in on 40? No,
he's 30,
he's 36.
Yeah, I mean, that's
but
for
not,
that sport.
No. This is specifically, I went through all the 4 major sports, and if Votto makes the team, he's the only active baseball player that is older than you. There are 2 other professional athletes currently in the major 4 sports that are older than you. And so it's just, I think we all have this, you and I are entering a period of, like, my list was shockingly long for hockey. No, I was not good for me. It was just that I was pretty happy. It was shorter. It was way too uncomfortable in football. Football, I was expecting to have a few more QBs and a few more kickers that were kind of hanging around that were going to be older than me. The list was shorter than I wanted it to be. It was uncomfortably short. But for you, you've got 3 guys. Do you know who they are?
In Major League Baseball?
No, Major League Baseball, you have 1 left, and it's Joey Votto. That's it. Sorry, brother.
I know. He's the oldest, and the second oldest is Justin Turner, who is younger than me because he's not yet 40.
Yes, he is, correct.
Well, Gio, and I just looked this up. But
you did? So you were looking up the leagues by accident?
But I was like, Gio, is he 39? Is he 40?
No,
he's 40.
He's 40.
And
he's older than you.
He's born in 1983, too, which is like, he's a fossil.
Ancient.
I know LeBron is
no,
born.
He's younger than
I
me.
know he's just younger than me. God.
There's one other guy.
There's one other guy?
Yeah, he was a breath away from the presidency.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers?
Yes.
Yeah, he still might be.
Okay, so no, he's older than you. I looked it up. So you've got Votto, Gio, and Rodgers. Those are your 3 guys. And it's important because I know it's important to you because I think it's important to all men. Like, there's a weird thing where being older than all of the athletes, like transitioning into that, is a bit of a weird phase. When you say in terms of the way that you watch sports,
is funny. I'm like wondering where the question is going to come. This just feels like this topic is just you making fun of how old I am.
No, look at you go defensive. I would have thought that you'd be more comfortable with yourself in your old age. I'm sorry to hear this. This is sad.
I've become the curmudgeon-y old man.
Yeah, you just right away, you're just defensive. You're like a boomer. You're like, I did my best. You're like, okay.
Yeah, is there a transition to the way you watch sports? I suppose
it's a strange time as a lifelong sports fan because you go from the only things you know are these are men who are your heroes.
Right.
These are people that you idolize and you look at and you go like, oh my God, someday I just want to be like this person, right?
Yeah.
We all do that. If you're in sports,
yes,
you idolized athletes at some point,
and you
and you thought one day I want to be this person, and then you got older and you played sports and you went, I won't be that. I guess I won't be that. And you'll have your dad like me laughing at me in a Pizza Hut when I'm 12, going like, "You're not playing in the NBA." I was like, "You'll see," crying.
Yeah, to me though, like. So the difference, and you're right, like, oh my God, Pat Borders. I wanted to be Pat Borders. I was a Little League catcher because Pat Borders was my dude. And man, what a feeling to watch a team win the World Series in back-to-back years, and as dramatic as 93 was, and to a lesser extent 92, but the first one in Blue Jays history. Yeah, I wanted to. The difference, though, for me, and to a lesser extent you, but you got into this industry a little later in your life than I did. Like
you were young. I was in my already early 20s.
I was like interning, like as a 19-year-old. I was hired full time.
No, I was older than all the other interns when I started.
So and that carries over into my early career. Like I got to interview Pat Borders once while he was wrapping up his career as a Seattle Mariner, and that was like, oh my God, eyes wide, and but it doesn't take long, and there's only a few scrums that go poorly, or like you hear offhand comments from players in dugouts or locker rooms before you realize, oh yeah, these are just people, and some of them aren't so great, and probably not a great idea to idolize the person. But that being said, you idolize the numbers. That's why, like the Joey Votto thing, the Joey Votto thing, when you're like, Canada baseball, I'm like, yeah, that's true, and like Maybe Joey Votto's not a great guy. I have no idea. I would have no way of knowing.
Quote that. Put that out as the board for today. Maybe Joey Votto's not a great guy, and then just clip that and put Ennis.
I have no idea. Like some of his posts are funny. Maybe he can be like
Who
sort
cares
of a
about that?
fun. Yeah,
I don't care about him being a great guy. I cared about him being a little bit. The issue was that he was playing essentially to be like, I want to come home and I want to be a Blue Jay, and this means a lot to me after already being on record in an honest moment being like, I don't give a rat's ass about Canadian baseball, Canada, and he says, or the Blue Jays. And now I'm just not getting overly sentimental about seeing him in a Blue Jays cap going like, the kid finally came home. Yeah, that's all. That was my only point there, not whether or not he was a good guy. Anyway, sorry, continue your point.
No, I was just going to say that. So it's you're saying it's a transition period for me to be older than everybody.
No, I'm saying it's for both of us. We're both in the same area. Like, yes, of course, the list is longer. I'm a few years younger than you. Not a big deal. But it's like we're getting into this phase where you went from idolizing the athletes to, okay, now you're kind of in college and you're thinking like, wouldn't it be crazy if this is what you were sort of doing, but everyone's still pretty much older than you.
Yeah.
Then you go through like young adulthood, basically all this time, like all the way from your like 20s to late 30s, where you're like, here's the guys I identify with. There's still players in the league that were there from this amount of time. And I remember the big one for me was when all those quarterbacks started retiring, when it was like Ben Roethlisberger, right? When we like Phillip Rivers, when you started to lose all those quarterbacks, Drew Brees, and I went, wait, these are guys now that when I was in college, they were in college, and I've seen the entirety of their careers as an adult. And now, when we watch sports, the guys you identify with, it was always like, oh, we're getting older. But now you're really, truly at the precipice of being like, I'm older than every professional athlete. All these guys, if you do any interview from this point forward, it's always like, hey, you young whippersnapper, I couldn't be a peer of yours. I would be.
I can say like, oh, he seems like a nice young man.
Yeah, that's it. You're moving into that.
Well, here's I think an interesting spin-off of that is that like all of our sporting heroes or our contemporary sports stars are moving into their second phase, which is like broadcasting. And you know how we make fun of like the old heads are like, oh, back in my day, we would have cleaned the floor with these guys. And you're like, yeah, probably not though. Like that's gonna be our lane soon enough.
So
all of our contemporaries are gonna be like, oh, but the sport has changed so much. Players that played in our generation would have absolutely killed these guys, and we'll have more sympathy for that line of thinking.
I don't actually have usually that line of thinking.
I don't either.
No, but I think that won't necessarily be one of ours. I think that we'll always have certain players that we'll die on the hill of, right? There's certain guys that we're going to go, oh no, well, if player X played in this era, he would thrive. Everybody does that, right? But I don't think we're going to be... Like we've seen too much for us to, I think, be going, no, well, this person would have thrived in this climate.
Maybe not from a talent perspective, but what do we talk about all the time? Like about the
but
lack
I think we're
of
at a saturation point though with professional sports where it's not going to get materially, like we're not going to see jumps ever again like we've seen from the days. We're never going to see Steph Curry right now, 50 years from now, is not going to look like Bob Cousy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're not going to watch the highlights and go, like, how did this guy play? Like, if we drop this guy into professional sports, he's never going to be able to do this. Right? Like, we're now
guys
there.
With second jobs, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's over
but
now.
I think what we might get to.
Maybe like Johnny Unitas, you're like, wow, that was America's athlete.
What we might get to is a point where, like, we're like, man, guys cared more about the games, and everybody's so rich now.
No, but that part I actually do agree with.
Well, that's it. But
I don't think that's old man stuff. I think that's just actually good perspective to have.
That's what an old man would say.
No. With old age comes wisdom, and I know you don't have a lot of it, but I am accumulating some.
Listen, I agree with you.
No, but not.
I also am smart enough to realize that's an old man take.
You're definitely biased. You're definitely biased.
Yes,
but I don't think it's an old man take to say, when you used to be a hockey player or used to be a professional athlete and you first came in on these rookie contracts, unless you were like a first round pick quarterback, right? Like even when we were in university, like if you were Jamarcus Russell, you got paid, right? He's wealthy. He's still got money. Like that was the thing. You'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody blew money because they were from that vintage of player where you were still able to accumulate enough on a first contract. Pretty much everything else, if you were a bust, you were screwed. Like you weren't going to be able to make this happen. Now, what is an actual, like absolute and unquestionable reality is in the other sports, you're getting paid in college now. And if you're a top tier guy or girl, like Caitlin Clark is already able to make millions of dollars. So when you get to the pros, the allure of you got to work your ass off to get to that second contract, like that's done. We've already seen that happen.
And you're
with
already
the
famous too,
That's what
right?
I mean.
Like, we've seen all the highlights of you. We're able to watch your games constantly. You probably have a social media presence.
Yes, that's what that's it. You are a far bigger celebrity already.
Mm-hmm.
You are already a brand. Mm-hmm. You are already earning money potentially as early as what, 17, 16 at this point. You're more of a professional now than ever in terms of the way you're being trained. This is one of the biggest things in basketball right now is they keep looking at AAU and basically every single person is going, we're not old man yelling at the sky here. All you guys are doing is playing games where the people who handle the ball are shooting nonstop and being given completely the green light. No one's playing defense. And kids are being shuttled around team to team without ever actually getting practices and being taught how to play the fundamentals of the game. And it's why you look at this year's draft class. Look at the mock drafts right now for the NBA. Do you think you're going to be seeing any of the, who are you excited to see in the tournament this year that's going to be in the draft lottery? Again, we're a market where we have a first-round pick.
Right.
Do you know why we're not excited for it? Because all the kids are international. All the kids at the very top of the draft this year are international. The top guy plays for the Colorado Buffaloes. Okay? That's where he plays right now. The number one North American player that we're looking at as probably ascends to the top. Has that ever happened before? I don't remember a lot of Colorado Buffaloes players. You guys remember, in the NBA? Long list? No, exactly. So I think that some of that stuff is true, but I think it's more just, how this era, how our era of person is going to all of a sudden start to shift and what that happens. Because I don't want to be that guy. I don't think you want to be that guy either. They're always the back in my day. So you're going to stay plugged into it. But it's kind of the more you're going to get. I think one of the problems is the further you move away in age from the athletes, the harder it is to relate to them. And so that's the part that I think we're going to start to miss.
I know. And you're right. And listen, there is wisdom. And I think our generation's pretty smart and pretty on it. And, we crossed over before the internet and saw the internet. And I think we're a pretty good generation.
We're the best.
But I'm very conscious of, people bemoaning millennials, right? Like when there was a crossover happening. Yeah. But so we
invented woke culture.
I don't interact a lot with Gen Zers, but I know that the narrative surrounding them. And I'm like, as much as that makes a whole lot of sense, I'm like, but I know every generation does this about the generation before. So yeah, I can see the logic behind it. I hesitate to be the old man entirely here until I see it play out a little bit more. So you know what?
So this is interesting. So really what we're landing on here is that you as someone with only 3 guys left, potentially 2, because Votto's not a lock. Potentially 1 because we may have already seen the end of Mark Giordano's career. So maybe the only guy.
I don't hear a lot of updates.
No, the only guy that you're truly clinging on to is someone who's coming off an Achilles tear and was debating a vice presidential run.
Still debating. He may have already signed off on it.
No. RFK picked somebody else.
Oh, he picked
Shanahan, the lady out of California.
Oh, she wasn't even in the running.
Oh,
I thought it was Jesse Ventura or Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. What a ballot. Dude, that guy, it's funny. I saw that guy on some podcasts and I'd seen some
Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, and I was like, this is kind of interesting, this guy's thoughts on this. And I went, okay. And then he's like, Aaron Rodgers could be my VP. I was like, buddy, anything that you ever, I thought, okay, it's over for you. Yeah. That's a wrap. No one can seriously, if I had a friend that was like, this RFK tweet, I'd be like, save it. Yeah, I'm okay on that. The Aaron Rodgers for vice president guy? Yeah, I'm good. So what you've got is these dudes you're playing on, but you're now maybe in a phase where you're hesitant because you're new to the waters. You're going, I don't want to be too critical of the young people because I don't know, maybe, you've got some paralysis by old man analysis.
Yeah, I guess. It's also my contrarian nature too, right? My gut tells me to nod, break my neck agreeing with everything you said. And you're probably right. Yeah, it makes logical sense. But I don't want to take the obvious route here. And I want to give him a chance. Give him a chance. I'm giving the kids a chance.
No, but there's going to be a lot of still good things from athletics. I am worried about some of the stuff in terms of college sports to me was always very special, and I always wanted to pay athletes, right? When I was growing up, I was like, this is insane. This is insane. South Park did the brilliant episode on it, right? Where you're like, man, these guys nailed it. But as all things, it's not usually black and white and completely uncomplicated without, fallout.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I think we are seeing right now with like the college sports transfer portals and like, I don't think Nick Saban is the best person I don't think that, but I believe that he really does care about college athletics and trying to develop young men into, men. But what he's saying when he goes and says, this is the reason why I'm getting out is like we're now just getting into the point where you're bidding on free agents. I kind of get that.
Yeah, and money is always going to be a part of sports, but it is always going to be a motivating factor. But at least like have the like possibility of it not being the overriding factor. Because it's still like even the example I was using earlier today was the Live Tour versus the PGA Tour, and we think of that sport in particular, golf, as being so decided, and the motivating factor being so like outsized, being money. But Wyndham Clark has made so many millions in his career. Scotty Scheffler has made tens of millions. Yeah. Look at the devastation on the face of that Wyndham Clark, who has like a 90-degree lip out on 18 to get into a playoff. Like, that we're getting to a spot in all of sports. And boy, this Leafs team, who doesn't seem all that devastated to blow a 2-goal third period lead to another Eastern Conference contender. We're getting to the spot where it's like, it's harder and harder to see the other motivating factors outside of money.
Yeah, that's true. And that's really one of the things is, and I bring this up all the time, but if you're a sports fan, and especially if I guess you're this age, like closer and our age, right? Like the millennial age. And before that, you really just want to feel like the athletes cared. They cared, and they would just lay it on the line in the most serious way. And that was the thing that you were feeding off of. And even when it comes to college athletics, you were like, this is purely for the love of the game. Most of these people know that they're not going to go on to play professional sports. They're doing this for the love of it. But now it's like, that's professional sports.
Yep.
And so it does change the equation of like where they landed, how they picked a school, are they going to remain a part of the program? I know with, again, college football, I just had the most entertaining college football season of my life. And then guess what happened? The Pac-12, the thing that I grew up on, is gone, all for football money. They're like, yep, no, we're making super football conferences. Like, who cares about all the other sports? Like, imagine being on the volleyball team and you're like, wait, when do we play? They're like, no,
Shut up.
Forget them. They're dead. They're gone. You got to travel in the middle of the night on a bus to Ohio. Yeah. They're like, but I picked a school in California. They're like, shut up, get on the bus. Football is making us money. All the other athletes is just like, who cares about you? You're done. You're gone. The care factor, I think, is dissipating. And then we've got something which is with the younger athletes, which we've always had, which is, well, the skill is going to get better. And so the entertainment product is going to get better. But we've actually started to see it go like, okay, but you're not pairing all the things together. You're going like really
team sports are about playing as a team. Like,
and it's just like, we're starting to see, I think that part of the reason why football is actually doing the best. And you can complain about the lack of hits and the way the game has changed in terms of how the safeties play and the hitting that has transpired. I was actually listening to Julian Edelman on Bill Simmons' podcast like last week, and he was talking about he was in the league when that transition happened from hard-hitting, thumping safeties that could just nail you over the middle to that were like basically linebackers to now we've got to have finesse guys that can cover because the hitting has changed. There's been a little bit of that, but for the most part, like you can't make the NFL and they still have the non-guaranteed contracts. You are still trying to get through.
Dude, it is like, it doesn't matter how many millions of dollars you've made. You still factually put your life on the line every time you step over the line in the NFL.
And I think that with soccer, it's got to be the same thing. Again, not the hugest soccer fan, but just in terms of your ability to stay at the top and how competitive the field is, you have to have that deep love of the game in order for you to kind of keep going. And I don't feel like, maybe I'm wrong here.
Much running.
But I don't feel as though soccer has suffered from this as much as I would say hockey and basketball have. And baseball I think is only actually getting better because they're finally figuring out like, you know what, we got to tweak some of this.
And baseball is a different one too, where it's like it's a try easier type of sport where like, if you're trying too hard and you put it too much on yourself, it's
that's
actually
true. It's like if you're trying too hard, they're like, you're trying too hard.
Take it easy.
You got to try less.
Be Manny being Manny. Whereas like, have a shot of whiskey before this playoff game.
Basketball and hockey though, I do think are in kind of precarious spots 100%. With their athletes.
Yeah. Well, and maybe the soccer reason that you don't see it as much is because
watch as much.
Well, there's that, but also that the fan bases are too fervent that like they will pick up on you. Like you will.
That's true.
Like, I mean,
love
depending
that
on what
about
country
soccer. God,
you play
I love
in,
that about soccer.
Depending on what country you play in, like the fans might be jumping over the barrier. I thought I just saw this in Turkey. Like some Turkish soccer team lost a game, and it was like, oh, the fans came on the field and were just furious at that team. So yeah, there's a real impetus not to be the guy that's lagging behind. And yeah, in this city, it feels like, oh yeah, there's a pressure on Leaf players if they don't perform. But I don't know, for every person that's upset about the last near decade of Leafs hockey, there's another one that's ready to come up with a defense of them. So yeah, yeah.
Here's my hope is that we've entered the no care era so strongly and so quickly that the
no care era.
And I do. I think that there's very much like, and there will always be the athletes who are like, the former pros that are like, you can't say that about, they obviously care. It's like, yeah, sure.
There's care and there's care.
Yeah, I think that there's pretty clearly different degrees to the game now. My hope is, and this is why, okay, you really want me to get into something here? Yeah. I actually believe that a lot of the reason why people in this market already care so deeply about Easton Cowan is not because he's got the 34-point streak. Part of it is that, a big part of it. Part of it is that he is a diamond in the rough, and who doesn't just love that, right? Sure. When you feel like you got one up on, it's like anything. You get a deal, you're like, you want to tell everybody about the deal.
Like second rounder?
You want you get a deal in any walk of life, and it's the only thing you want to talk about with someone. You're like, someone's like, that's a nice shirt. You're like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. Got it on sale. Here's how I got it. This is, and then you got a story, and other people are interested. They're like, I would someday like to have a deal as well. I would love to have a deal. I've had deals before. I'd love to have more. They're the best. There's nothing better than a good deal. So there's that. It's a multitude of elements, but part of it, to me anyways, and I think that other people might agree with this upon hearing it, is that he draws comparisons to Darcy Tucker from guys like Jason Bukala. He's named after a hockey stick. Yes. You see him and you go, hey, this kid cares. Yes. This kid loves the game. He plays with a bleep ton of passion. And that's what people want. They're like, oh, the undersized kid? He's not some 6'4" prima donna, had everything handed to him. This is a kid who had to work and continues to work and seems to like not be afraid of the moment and the effort and all the things and says the right stuff. And he's got like the true blue hockey family, and people are like, that's a throwback. Maybe part of the reason why he's working and why he's able to elevate himself is because he's in the no care era, caring. And if we start to get those kids, if that becomes the new market inefficiency is...
Oh, that would be great.
That would be awesome, right? Like,
the next Moneyball is going to be written about the guy who was like, hey, you can have your stats. And,
I don't even think it's the next Moneyball. I think it's already happening. I think it's already happening where teams are like uber coveting that type of... Look at what's even happening with the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? They've got these stars and so whatever. You make your own opinion on some of them and... what their priorities have been and are as they continuously break contract records. And yet every general manager keeps being like, we need a Ryan O'Reilly on this team, the guy before. We need guys like this. The new GM comes in and is like, we need a face puncher and Ryan Reeves. We need Max Domi in here. We need Tyler Bertuzzi in here. They go to the deadline. They're like, we need big Joel Edmondson in here, Stanley Cup winner. They keep trying to transplant all these like caring guys onto the less caring guys, let's just say. And that's already becoming the thing. You're willing to pay for it. On paper, you shouldn't be giving up assets for some of these dudes at all. You shouldn't be paying some of these dudes at all. But I think that we're starting to see that a little bit more in sports, and we're going to continue to. And hopefully it starts to zag in the other direction. I can be a little pessimistic at times and go, yeah, but it's going to be, it's what we've always said. It's harder to sleep or what is it? Harder to wake up and train when you're sleeping in satin sheets.
Yeah, that's...
I don't know how that doesn't apply to every major sport when, you're a 19-year-old and you've got, like, think about how you were when you were 19 in terms of what would motivate you. If you were a millionaire, you're like, and your favorite social activity was to hang out in your room on a headset and sit in a big chair and sit in front of a screen and play a video game with people.
Yeah,
stream it.
There's no question. They're only human beings. I get it. Yeah, no, 100%. It is, hockey is such an individual like sport in this regard, though. Like as far as the the ancillary things, the unquantifiable things that it just, and obviously like we're speaking to an audience that is nodding their heads because they've watched the last 7 years of postseason with this Leafs team. Basketball.
I don't want to turn it all into just this Leafs team, but yes, they are a good example of it, I think.
Yeah, and but it's not like
they were handed everything before other guys were, and they were really hey, as RFAs, they changed the game.
Well, and it's not like Austin Matthews doesn't want to win and doesn't like understand like the secondary level of fame and owning the city you can have if you were ever a part of that team. But it's like, it would only be human nature to also think of like, okay, what's the worst that happens? It's like, I'm still getting paid. I'm still viewed as one of the greatest players in the history of this city. Is all major all the sports teams that have ever played in this city. Like, that's only human nature to like. I find myself guarding. Like when I play poorly at golf, I'm like, oh, at least I get to go home and I have my family. Like, I swear to God, I rationalize playing poorly. I'm like, okay, don't get so upset. It's just like a round of golf. Like, you know, you have your health, you have your family.
You know what though? You know what? This is actually my defense of the modern athlete though too. You know, we always used we've always had the thing where the former athletes were like, don't read the papers, and you could feel it in the town. It's like, no, but you know what you definitely can feel? That little device in your phone that you look at, and you can see all the people hating on you. And that would absolutely affect the way that I feel about fan bases and people. And, you know, you have a bad spot and you're like, I know there's just a pocket full of nightmares. Just you open it up and you get a look at the people that so like supposedly care the most about you. And they're like, you don't care, you don't this, And it's like, I think that would make you a little jaded. That would affect you. That it's true. I know like at times it affects me and I'm nobody. So I don't know. Like I would imagine that on a massive scale when you've got millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of people that
but after it's happened for so long, and now we're like nearing a decade of that, you would become numb to it to some degree.
I don't think anyone does. I really don't. I think there are some people that are better at ignoring it and forgetting it, but I don't think that there's anybody like, okay, have you seen that famous Barstool clip of the Aaron Donald thing? Where they're like a bust, Big Cat has him, and he's like, that's Aaron Donald. And when he's sitting down, he's like, he reads him that tweet. And Aaron Donald's face, you can see it where he's like, who said that? Like, he wants to know. That's Aaron Donald. He's the best defensive tackle in the NFL at the time. He's a dominant player. And yet he hears someone across the say this about him, and his face kind of like is like in shock. I don't think it's easy to just pass criticism. I see it from, you know, you'll get the accounts where it's just a picture of a car and the guy's like, this about you, or you see it and you're like, this is obviously a lunatic, and yet it'll stick with you sometimes where you're like, I want to defend him. And then
it definitely affects me. Like, I don't.
No, I think it affects everyone. I think it affects everyone. You just have to be able to immediately just like mute or block and then just get like try to turn the page.
Which I do. What I don't have that Austin Matthews has is like at any at any like turn,
handsome,
like he can be like, oh yeah. Hey, can I just call up like one of my super famous friends? And
what do you have that Austin Matthews does have actually more so like than
hair.
I was gonna that's true. That's true. I was gonna say though that you were like, what I don't have that Austin Matthews was like, long. It's a long list, buddy. Yeah, it's a long.
And Austin Matthews can pay for hair.
Yeah.
And sorry, like there's been no tangible advancement in hair replacement technology that I've seen that puts him on my level. Like, I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, we've gone a little long with the self-indulgent conversation. I hope people enjoyed it. I can't tell, though. So send us hateful messages on social media and let us know. At JD Bunkis, at Sportsnet Ben. If you enjoyed it, you can say a nice thing, and I'll forget it immediately. If you hated it, you can send a message that I'll carry in my heart till the day that I die. Danny Jansen's hurt again. Can you pay him? He's a pending UFA. The Blue Jays are about to go to a catcher in the interim who has a negative 0.5 career WAR.
Two waiver wire guys.
Yeah, no, but the guy that's ahead, the Rockies, I was not even aware of his existence until...
Oh, yeah. I also had to do like baseball reference dive.
Was not familiar with his game, and now that I am, I would like to pass on ever seeing it professionally. But okay, here's some Danny Jansen stats. Since 2021, I don't know why I said it like that, 10 ingeries.
From the year 2021.
2021.
AD.
Yeah, I know, yeah. He's got 10 injuries. He's 28th in plate appearances as a catcher. Sorry, that was last season, and that was the most he had since 2019. He's 2023, he had 2 IL stints, groin and a right middle finger fracture. 2022, 2 IL stints, missed a month with a metacarpal fracture, and then missed another month with an oblique injury. 2021, 2 IL stints, both a month where he pulled his hamstring 2 separate times. Basically, what I'm getting at is, if you're having Danny Jansen on your baseball team, it seems like you're going to miss 2 months basically every single year of him playing. That's sort of the status quo. But yet you don't have anything behind him.
Well, you got Alejandro Kirk.
And you don't, hold on. I mean, moving forward.
Yeah.
Outside, Kirk, I don't like playing I don't know how he's going to age, playing the how he's going to age game, because it's like he's still in his early 20s. I'm assuming that he's going to be able to catch. I don't think he's going to fall apart in 2 years, okay? So I'm not looking at it through the lens of, is he going to break down immediately? But yeah, having only Alejandro Kirk as your catcher is probably not the best position that you want to be in. Maybe the Blue Jays have still a glut. Like, people probably take it for granted that they have 2 of these guys that are actually capable and above average major leaguers. But, that was loud. I wondered if that could. I honestly just thought someone started to rip a fart live on air. I was
really?
Like, oh my God. When it first started, I thought Simon was just like, I don't care.
Can people hear it, like, on the other side of the glass? Can you hear it through the microphone?
You could hear that one?
Yeah, there's someone doing, like, some drilling or something.
Yeah, there's some construction going on below the studio. Yeah. It's like, that one was
some real regard to what is happening.
I really did think Simon was like, and he was like, look at me in the eyes. I was like, this is an alpha move. I was like, I am shocked. Anyways, they probably do have a bit of a abundance at the position right now. But yeah, Danny Jansen is a pending UFA. What do you do? Like, do you say we can't continue to have a part-time player? Like, does this kind of almost automatically disqualify him from a contract? Like, normally you'd have an injury-prone guy entering that age, and it's kind of an easy one.
Yeah, except he plays the position where you get the most injured, right? And, like, what's the most optimistic projection for a guy who's a full-time catcher? It's like 100 games. Incredible.
No. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying here.
What a feat of strength to play 100 games.
That's what I'm saying here, is if you go through it last year, again, his best season.
Catchers, you're right.
Best season behind the plate.
He's more injured than
since 2021. He's 28th. He's right there with Travis d'Arnaud.
Most of these things have been like, not like soft tissue injuries, though. Again, he gets hit on the
both.
hand.
No, it's both.
Yeah, but it's
he gets hit on the hands and his bones break.
Yeah, he's got bonitis.
Yes, and then he does get soft tissue, oblique and hamstring multiple times.
Well, I think this is the hinge point for this franchise, as we've keep talking about at the end of the season, anyways, right? So if you're going through either a soft rebuild or like a more hardcore rebuild. Yeah, you're not going to invest in a 30-year-old catcher who's always hurt.
Yeah.
Secondarily, it's not like I don't think he's breaking the bank. Like, can you get Danny Jansen? Like, is Danny Jansen's contract because everybody else also has access to these games played numbers? Is anybody else like got to sign this guy up to a 5-year deal? Probably not. Despite the fact that when he plays, he can as long as he's pulling the ball like he's decided he's going to do the last couple of years, he can hit some home runs for you and be an occasional DH bat.
Except for this, and I've already raised this point, but if you look at the UFA catchers coming up, Danny Jansen is like far and away the best guy. Like we're talking about, like, these are his contemporaries. There's
not very many good catchers to begin with.
But that's what I'm saying.
Not a surprise.
The Max Stassi, Austin Hedges, Luke Maile.
Yeah, our guy, Luke Maile.
Austin Barnes, who will be 35 years old. Like, it's Yasmani Grandal, 36 years old. James McCann, 35 years old. Travis d'Arnaud, 36 years. He'd be 36 years old. Yeah. Like, it's basically
the field.
not Chapman. Like,
but look at the field. I think Major League Baseball is getting wise to like not overpaying for these non-star players. Like, look at the field of available bats that were on the free agent market this year.
Yeah,
it was
but
like
that's
why we were like, oh, Cody Bellinger, somebody's going to have to pay through the nose for Cody Bellinger. Matt Chapman, despite the fact he was good for 1 of 6 months this year, somebody's going to convince themselves he's worth the price of admission. Guess what happened? Everyone's like, no, those guys aren't. I'm not tying my franchise to non-star players. Like, I'm not doing it.
One of those teams was the Blue Jays, and this was in a year where you would have thought if there was a depreciating asset, an asset that was having the price come down, they would have been a team to pounce, and they weren't. And so I think it's kind of interesting for them that they don't have anybody in the system. you're right. These guys don't technically get uber paid, but he seems to be in a spot that Matt Chapman was in, where if you're his agent, you're going, hey, dude, I know you're not getting a monster bag here, but you're by far the best option in free agency. And so we've got to be able to get you something. And if you're the Blue Jays, you're like, okay, we can't play you. You're likely to get hurt again, but this is the hardest position to develop. We don't have anybody that's on the, come up, and we don't want to have a scenario where Alejandro Kirk is having to catch this frequently. I don't think that that's a good formula for success. And so, yeah, I think it's the only reason I'm bringing this up now is that it's because of the injury just happened. But yeah, I did look back, and like I said, 10 injuries since 2021, and the last 3 seasons, 6 months of missed service time.
Well, here's what I mean,
more than that, really, but yeah,
it's tough because Blue Jays, all they have is DHs. So
yeah, that's it. That's what I mean.
What I would the mental path that I was going down was, remember when they were both healthy and you were like, well, you can always DH Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen's the guy you play behind the plate because he's a better defender. And I think in an overall sense, he is the better defender. But I think even when Danny Jansen comes back, like, it's Alejandro Kirk you got to lean on for the majority of starts behind the plate. And for Danny Jansen, that probably means just less playing time altogether because he's not going to get DH starts over Justin Turner, you wouldn't think. And especially,
neither of those guys is getting that this year, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, in that regard, maybe it's
barring disaster.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good thing that it's going to be like a meritocracy, so that you're like not forced into one situation. But I think even when he returns as good an offensive player as he can be, and with the downturn in Kirk's offense the last year, I still think you lean towards starting Kirk because Kirk's not some like paragon of health either, but he's more healthy than Danny Jansen. I think I would probably lean to Alejandro Kirk as long as he's holding his head above water offensively, well, he's the number one catcher.
Yeah, well, Kirk almost got his 100 games last year. He played 93 as a catcher, and he had 344 plate appearances as a catcher. That's pretty good. That puts him at 19th.
Played 139 games the year previous with 541 plate appearances.
No, he's been super durable. The people that are worried about him in terms of falling apart, I think... so far he hasn't really given them much reason to think that. Anyways, I just think it's tough because Jansen is seemingly this really popular clubhouse guy.
Yeah.
He definitely fits in with if you're sticking with the Vlad and Bo thing, the timeline, you're right. He's probably just one of the hinge players. Yeah. That if this season goes poorly...
If it's good, then you're re-signing him to a 3-year deal where maybe you're overpaying him for that span. But if it goes sideways,
hard to envision a scenario where the Blue Jays sell, but if they ever were to sell, he would be very much at the top of the you gotta flip him pile.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's one of those guys as a pending free agent.
Okay, before you go, I have one golf thing for you. Okay. So Scheffler, first ever to win back-to-back players. It's a really exciting finish. It even grabbed my attention as someone who really only wants to tune into the majors, but players kind of like, something that you'll care about.
They call it the 5th major.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm tuning in. I'm kind of watching it. I'm following it a little bit through the clips, and then I'm deciding, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll just turn this on and have it on kind of in the background. I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is great. Shoots a 64, ends up winning. There's a big conversation about Scheffler and how he's becoming the face of golf, and he's the now clear runaway belt holder. And then I went, except for the fact that the other guy is on live now. And it was one of the first times where I watched a golf tournament and I really felt the missing of the other guys. And I'm curious about how you feel. Just hear me out on this. It's
I don't know. Go ahead.
To me, it's like now you have Rom gone.
Yeah.
It's
Rom gone.
But it's like before when it was Liv started poaching guys, right? You're like, okay, Ian Poulter's gone. Who cares? Get out of here, right? Brooks Koepka seemed to be done. Liv looked like something where they were going to be stealing the guys that were basically going, we're seeing the end.
Yeah.
DJ
Bryson DeChambeau. It's like that was a freak show.
Yeah, we're seeing the end of the career, or we don't think we can compete at the very, very top anymore. So let's grab the bag, and who cares if nobody sees us play golf anymore? Yeah. And yes, I know they've had this partial thing, we figured it out. PGA is bought by 10% of Liv or whatever the hell this is. I still don't really fully understand exactly how they're going to integrate beyond majors.
No.
But this was the first time I watched a tournament and I felt like, guys there's something missing here. And I don't know if that's a golf fan take or if you guys are just out, you're able to just basically you're like, okay, we lost a limb, but we're just going to keep going, like cauterize the wound and just keep going. But for me, I kept thinking, we're missing enough guys now. There are enough names missing that it feels like I felt the weight of it. And I certainly felt Rom. And I'm not talking about like Cam Smith as a household name, but when there are other players that are on the leaderboard now, I'm like, how many of you would be here if they had the full field?
Well, okay, it's funny because I had the opposite feeling watching that thing because I was like, oh, here's what Liv can never do, right? Like, oh, you can build and like maybe there's some rules that are like interesting.
No, I'm never
going
to pay attention to Liv. No, that's not what I'm saying.
No,
though. I'm saying like in terms of golf is always going to survive. Doing the death of golf,
nobody
is idiotic. But can it thrive without all of its greatest players in the same place in these kinds of tournaments? Like, I just don't think it can. Like, I don't. There is a part of me that's like, yeah, Scheffler won. He's first ever back-to-back. Awesome. But the other guy's not there.
Yeah, but two of the other three guys that finished tied for second are major champions, right? And
Again,
Xander Schauffele might be the best player to not have won a major. So to me, that was like kind of a star-studded field. It wasn't just that it was a close finish. It was guys with real pedigree. And that there's... Listen, I'm not going to convince you that the Valspar is like worth watching, which is the next tournament, or even the Arnold Palmer at Bay Hill. But like that is, if you play video games, you know that golf course, right? Again, and that's something that Liv will never have. It'll take 100 years for them to build up the type of cachet that a tournament like that will have. And
what other sport would ever be like that though, where it's like the number 2 player is gone? Actually, in my estimation, the number 1. Like, I still think Rom over Scheffler.
Was he not number 1 when he left?
Yeah, my life's on the line. I know who I'm taking. It's Rom. And he's gone, and it's like, don't worry, like, nothing to see here. We're going to keep it going. And that's kind of the general sentiment that I get from golf fans.
He still gets to play in the NBA Finals, right? Like, they still get to meet. Yeah. And this is honestly, like, if we're being honest.
This is just for you guys.
No, this is the only other tournament that really matters, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is supposed to be the one that I like. This is one where I tuned in and was like, oh, there's more stakes here. I wanted to watch it.
This is the one where Liv should feel the worst. This is where the player should feel the worst. This is where, like, the Saudi investment fund should feel the worst.
I'm not trying to do a pit like Liv versus PGA here. I'm never going to watch Liv. There's nothing Liv will ever do to make me remotely.
Anthony Kim was the one thing.
Liv will never get my attention for a second.
Tiger plays on Liv.
He's not going to.
No, but if that happened, that would be the thing.
But I wouldn't, even then, it's like, okay, great. Even he's basically admitted, like, guys, you got to stop. It's done.
Yeah, he would be the guy.
Yeah. I guess I would I wouldn't even, because I don't care about, I'm telling you, I don't even care about Tiger anymore. I'm done with it. It's like, I feel bad about it. In fact, no, that's stunned.
Yeah,
I would look at it on social media like anybody else. I would consume it that way and be like, how's he doing?
Honestly, I don't even know how to watch Liv.
Yeah, who does? No, it's...
I saw it at an airport once, and I was like, what channel is that?
I actually, I had a joke written down once about Liv being like, are we sure it's actually happening?
Yeah.
Are we sure? Like, has anybody confirmed that they're actually playing these tournaments, that these guys are playing for, or they're not just showing up at corporate? Like, I picture them just out there with, princes golfing with them, and they're like basically doing the Putin thing where they're like, wow, you're just as good as us. That's what they've been paid to do, is just fake that they're...
It is on TV. Somebody has the rights. I don't know who the hell it is, but...
Sure. My point here is just more that this was one of the first times where I really felt like, man, the ecosystem of this stinks, and it's just not great for anything but the majors.
Yep. No, I will say, like, I guess I thought about that going into the tournament. Honestly, that was my take going into this thing, was that this is the tournament I'm going to feel it the most, like the star power, because this is like a major, except imagine the majors without those guys.
Yeah.
Then you're like, well, that's not a legitimate Masters title. That's not a legitimate U.S. Open title because, there's no John Rahm.
That's what I'm saying. Imagine watching the Masters and Rory wins, and they were like, Rahm isn't here. I'd be like, oh.
Well, but here's the thing. As much as Scotty Scheffler is the first man to ever win back-to-back Players Championships, nobody thinks back on the length and breadth of somebody's career, and it's like, how many players did you win, though?
Yeah, I don't think that's it. I just think it's more the fascination point for me is, again, that a league now is playing all of its tournaments except for its 4 majors.
Yeah.
No, 3, because they don't play in PGA, right? Live guys?
No, they're playing in the PGA Championship as well.
Okay.
As long as they're still qualified.
Okay, so anyway, I just can't think of any other sport that would ever be like that, where it's like, okay, like, hey, Steph Curry is actually going to go play in China now. He's going to chase this huge bag of money. He won't be in the NBA. And we're all like, all right, forget him immediately. forget about it.
Yeah.
Hey, the field is the field. And you're like, hey, Anthony Edwards is still here. You're like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Like, would I have felt better if it was, if it was John Rahm instead of Brian Harmon chasing Scotty Scheffler? Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Probably. But I also still thought that was good enough because of the golf course, because of the tournament, because of the guy at the tippy top, too.
Yeah.
That he's a relevant figure, that he's the number one player in the world, and that we're all anticipating this incredible run because all he had to do was figure out putting, and then he figured it out. So, yeah, it would have been better. Like, I'm not going to tell you it's not better without John Rahm.
Yeah.
It's good enough, though.
Something else, though. I haven't quite tapped it. Like, I'm kind of dancing around whatever this is, but something's there, and it's just like
What?
we all know. No, I'm just saying the trying to find this. I was trying to like explore it before, but it's just that this is a sport of individualism, and so it's like there's contractors, so we feel a little bit more comfortable with the idea that like a contractor would go. It has been a slow burn with it, and big names did go to live, right? Like significant players went.
Yep.
Again, like Cam Smith right after winning the Open, leaving was like a real eye-opening moment of, oh, this guy's on the ascension, and now he's just gone. It felt dramatic. Now it just doesn't even have that. Like it doesn't even have like the players pitted against each other. It's just like you guys are over here on your basically retirement tour.
You're gone.
The rest of the world continues to exist, and yet it's like anybody could go at any given time, right?
Yeah.
Like, is there a 0% chance Scotty Scheffler is next? You know, just
I don't know the weirdness of them negotiating with the PGA Tour and what that means, and like,
that's
nobody has an idea about like some integration of those guys back in. There was even talk of like this tournament, because it is so prestigious, because it has added import close to the majors, that you have like an exception for the live guys for this individual tournament. Like the possibility of that happening going forward, I think is very real. But yeah, I would say my take was that this is the tournament, the golf course, and even still some of the players was good enough.
No, good. Yes, that's it. It's just for me, it's impossible to ignore the missing guys. Like it's impossible not to think about those guys there whenever I'm being told, hey, it's time to tune in for this and this matters. And I'm like, okay.
No, to me, I was kind of shocked that it got as much social media play as it did, considering
but
the names
the
gone.
guy making the shots and having the back nine and the new robot, like the guy that you don't want to be in the chase with. I get it. I'm just saying, we'll see moving forward. Anyway, we got a break. We're late. Ben Ennis, thanks for making time. We'll see you later, buddy.
Bye-bye.